What is up, guys? Doug Polk here, and we're back with another episode of Poker Hands, this time from the World Series of Poker main event final table. Because heads up is my preferred format, we're going to go ahead and jump right into a heads up hand between Vayo and Qui Nguyen.
But heads up on the button, you have to bring it in for a raise. I don't like that fold at all.
So I'm so interested. He's got his coach here. He's talking to him at breaks. His coach is watching everything.
The school, if you go to School of Marchese, he does not tell you to fold there.
So that's why I'm curious with Tom Marchese in his corner, why Gordon is playing this way. If you're telling me that Tom would have him play a different way.
I don't have an answer for you, Norman. I don't know.
Well, Vayo's certainly up close. He's seeing Qui Nguyen up close as well. Maybe there's something in the body language or the way he moves his hands or the way he puts his chips in the middle. I mean, Gordon certainly has more information than Marchese, but you know, if you're going to hire a coach and say he's a better version of you, why not go with him? Queen 9 against Jack 5 of diamonds for Nguyen.
Our hand begins pre-flop, with Nguyen being dealt Jack 5 suited and electing to open to 2.7, 2.8-ish blinds. He was doing this all match and is certainly a reasonable open size. I might want to consider going smaller because of how tight Vayo is playing in the big blind. Vayo then decides to flat with Queen 9 off, which is definitely the correct play. You don't want to 3-bet this type of hand because it has good showdown value, can make solid pairs, but plays pretty badly against 4-bets and also in 3-bet pots. Let's go ahead and take a look at the flop.
14.2 million in the middle. 9 for Vayo, so he hits top pair. And he checks it. Don't look at those graphics. There you go.
Pretty sure there's no 2 9 of clubs in the deck.
No, Antonio, there's not 2 9 of clubs in the deck. However, sometimes there happens to be 2 queen of clubs.
There's 2 queen of clubs.
Oh my God! What the?
Wow. Wow. Well, that's definitely a dead hand. That's just for sure the rule.
This is a fantastic flop for Vayo. He's flopped top pair, queen kicker. He loves his hand. He is happy to get some chips in the middle of the pot.
So Nguyen was the pre-flop raiser. Vayo checks it to him.
So the one time he shouldn't c-bet, well, he actually should from theoretical standpoint. Obviously, he doesn't know that Vayo has top pair. Could be the one time he decides to continuation bet on the flop. But no, you know, given there's 14 million out there, I would always stab at this pot with Jack 5 of diamonds. I do have some cards on the turn that can increase my equity, give me some good bluff cards, semi-bluff cards to continue with, and also a Jack is a great card. 3 is a great card, a diamond's a great card, and also all the times that Vayo missed a flop, I can just win the pot right there. Now we can see that Vayo is flop top pair and is not going anywhere.
9.7 million from Nguyen. He would love to see it. He didn't know, but a Jack coming out would be great for Vayo. Now, let's see. They've had some time to talk to their people, their coaches, and see if any change in strategy.
Finally. No.
Just a call.
Just a.
The flop comes 9-4-2 with 2 clubs and 1 diamond. Vayo flops top pair, which is a very strong hand heads up, and Nguyen flops an overcard with a backdoor flush draw. Vayo checks, as he should with all of his hands out of position, and Nguyen decides to bet 10 million into a pot of about 14 million. While I think maybe his size could be a little bit smaller than that, it's a very big size to go on a board like 9-4-2, where your opponent's unlikely to have hit many pairs. I like selecting this hand to bet with. You can barrel on turns like a 3 or a 6 or a Jack, a 5 if you want to go thin for value, a 6 if you want to bluff with a little less equity, an ace if you want to represent some ace high hands that bet the flop, and also on diamonds. So you get a lot of turns you can bet. I like this decision to bet. The size is okay. Maybe it's a little bit big. Now Vayo has a clear check call. And I'm not sure if you guys have been watching this match much or not, but Nguyen had been barreling Vayo off in a ton of spots. So if I'm Vayo, I'm pretty pumped about the situation, and I'm going for the check call to let him hang himself on the turn. So both players play the flop well. Let's see what develops.
Wants him to continue bluffing at it.
But I understand that, and he's wanted him to continue to bluffing out almost every time when he is.
Right, but he hasn't held on, and that's a problem. So I think this time he's definitely going to hold on. Well, the 10 does change things a little bit, but again, Vayo isn't really that scared of a 10. If his opponent turned a bigger pair, then more power to him. There's 33 million chips in the pot. Will Nguyen give it up or continue here? To be seen. Tune in, folks. ESPN.
I'm guessing that young Pham told him, didn't tell him to stop doing this. I mean, young Pham knows he's been doing this, and Vayo's been checking, and Qui's been putting chips in the pot, and look at this.
So he's clearly representing an overpair, right? If he had a 9 in his hand, even if he had ace-9, I don't think he's going to bet this strong, especially when the 10 falls on the turn. So he's essentially trying to tell Vayo that he has jacks, queens, kings, aces. Maybe he flopped a set of deuces or 4s. That's basically the story he's trying to tell. And this could be the time that Vayo decides to take a stand. Now, we've seen him play pretty passively so far in this heads-up match. We've seen him fold many times when he wasn't supposed to. Whether this is the time where he actually holds on or not is yet to be unseen.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. And what does he want to do with it?
Yeah, and that's a pretty insignificant card at home. So a lot of people thinking, well, the 10 comes, he's more scared. But really, it doesn't change a lot. Nguyen either has the story he was telling before the 10 came, or he doesn't. It's that simple.
Well, those are the calling chips right there. And that's all Gordon puts in. But that is a lot.
89 million in the middle, boys.
The turn is the 10 of hearts, and this is where Nguyen starts to go off of the beaten path. This is not really a turn that you want to be barreling with a hand like Jack-5 of diamonds. You have tons of great bluffs to pick from. I mean, you have 5-3, you have 8-7, you have Jack-8, you have clubs, you have Queen-Jack, you have, you know, all of these different hands. If you want to use some gut shots, 6-5, you have all of these kinds of hands that can be bluffing, and you don't have to be picking hands with non-equity. This hand is just too bad. Bluff with some outs. Why bluff with this hand that has no ability to improve at all? However, he also decides to go a very large size, which I kind of don't like. On the turn, your opponent either has a 9 or a weaker pair, air, ace-high, king-high type of hand. Why bet a size that is easy for your opponent to play? If I'm Vayo and I see this size, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to call when I have a 9, or if I have a good flush draw, you know, if I have an ace-high flush draw, if I have like a combo draw, let's say I had a hand like, you know, Queen-Jack, I'm going to call because I have a lot of equity. Let's say I have a hand like, you know, 7-8 suit, probably 3-bets pre. So maybe not that one, but the point of the matter is you have plenty of bluffs to choose from Nguyen, and you should also pick a size that puts a hand like a 4 in a tough spot. If Vayo has a hand like 5-4 here, he can just fold in the turn because of how massive this bet is. It's almost the full size of the pot. So I think I'd like to see a smaller size. I'd like to see a different hand. But overall, he's definitely keeping his foot on the gas pedal here against Vayo, however you pronounce it. Now Vayo has a tough decision. He has flop top pair and is now facing some serious pressure. But here's the thing. When people start barreling off on you and they get really aggressive, they're pushing you around, top pair is your time to put your foot down and be like, I have top pair and I'll see you on the river.
This heads-up match is going to tighten up a whole lot after this hand.
Nguyen's been pairing his 5 a lot on the river, it seems. But Vayo, with the lock on this hand, that's a pretty good run out for him. He's going to see if Nguyen wants to do some more lifting.
Nguyen actually has a little bit of showdown.
All in.
All in.
Wow.
What a moment for Gordon Vayo. He cannot lose by calling.
This man has a lot of heart.
So the river is the 5 of spades. Vayo checks, and Nguyen moves in for about 80-85% pot to put Vayo to a test for his tournament life. And I'm going to say a few things here. I know there's a bunch of people that are going to be like, no, they're wrong when I bring up some of this stuff, but I'm going to say it anyway because it needs to be said. First off, your tournament life isn't as precious as people make it out to be. Now, that's not to say it doesn't have value. Of course, your last chip in the tournament is worth so much more than every other chip. But here's something to think about. If you live in fear of busting, if you're going to play in a way where you're not willing to stack off, you let people run it on you in all these situations very profitably. So by putting your foot down, ending the madness, and just calling with appropriate ranges in a lot of these spots, you don't allow yourself to get run over and then win more chips. If your opponent can't bluff you consistently in all these spots, then they're either going to lose a lot trying, or you're going to win a lot of pots in small places because they're trying to win, but they can't really because they can't get it through on you. The main event is a prestigious tournament. And if there's any tournament, especially in the early stages, that it makes sense to conserve your tournament life, I can understand this being the case. That said, you don't want to just completely deviate off course and start just living in the woods because you think that they aren't bluffing. And I feel like in so many of the comments I see in some of my videos, people are like, never a bluff or always a bluff. And they happen to be right. How about that? But the thing is this, okay? You don't know what they're doing when you're sitting there staring at the other guy. You don't know what they're doing. But what you do know is how to play poker correctly, hopefully. So here's the way I would approach this spot. And it's the same I would approach anything I would play. It's the same logic. And it's also, I guess, worth mentioning that because you're just playing heads up for the remaining money, ICM's not a factor anymore, so you can just call at about an optimal frequency and be okay. I know that was complicated, but I think you guys can handle optimal frequency. Anyway, back to the hand. We established on the turn that you either have to have a flush draw, combo draw, ace or king high flush draw, maybe a hand like queen jack, or a 9 in order to call the turn because of how big the bet was, right? You can also have maybe a hand like a 2 with 2 clubs, but given that the 2 is out there, it's kind of unlikely you have many of those hands pre-flop. Maybe ace 2 of clubs, queen 2 of clubs, king 2 of clubs. How can I not think of that? Those are all reasonable hands to call with. Reasonable hands to call the turn with. Now, on the river, your opponent is betting about 80% pot. So you have to continue with a little over half of all your hands. The way I would think of it is like this. If I have a 10 or better, I'm always calling, and you will occasionally have a couple of 10s. Maybe a hand like, king 10 of clubs, or maybe a hand like jack 10 of diamonds that didn't 3-bet, although you should probably be 3-betting. But maybe a hand like ace 10. So you're going to have some 10s in your range that can call off this jam. The question is, what do we do with our 9s? What are we going to do with those hands? And I think the answer is because our turn calls have so many 9s in them, we're always calling 9 in the turn. What I would do is I would call with 9s that have strong kickers and fold with ones that do not. Because if you have a hand like 9-8 or 9-7, it kind of sucks because if they have a 7 in their hand, they're more likely to be bluffing, and you block those. And when you have a hand like queen 9, king 9, ace 9, they're now less likely to have a hand like an overpair that they're kind of representing here. When you go bet very large jam, you're sort of repping a hand like an overpair or a 2-pair type of hand, I guess. And so it makes sense to be calling with your strong 9s and folding with your weak ones. That way, no matter what your opponent decides to do, you're going to be beating him. If he doesn't bluff, then you're going to win too much with showdown. If he bluffs too much, you're going to pick him off in these spots and you have queen 9. So there's a lot at play here. I would personally call with queen 9, but that's my game theoretical answer. I want to give you my straight up answer as someone that's played a lot of heads up, made most of my money in heads up from exploiting people, understanding how they play, understanding how they think. And this motherfucker is punking you. All match, Nguyen was punking Vayo. Constantly. Non-stop punking him. And look, a lot of people gave him too much shit in some of the smaller hands where he made reasonable folds even though he was being bluffed. This is not reasonable. When your opponent starts pushing you around, winning too many pots, going all red line on you, and you're just getting crushed, you absolutely cannot decide in the big spots to knit it up and let him have the pot. He barreled the turn with one overcard. Let's sit back and think of this. What worse hands can he bet in the turn? So it's got to have one, I guess like 7-3, 8-3. 7-5. I mean, there's not even many hands that are possibly worse than this hand to bet in the turn, and he still was just like, gonna bet anyway, and gets to the river with 1 overcard. And let's actually just take a step back. We've talked about Vayo a bunch here. What the hell was Nguyen doing on the river? Okay, he can still win. Get it? He can still win though. If he has a hand like Ace 2 of clubs, King 2 of clubs, Queen 2 of clubs, him being Vayo, or Vayo has a hand like maybe he decided to call a turn with Ace 4, King 4, maybe a light turn call. If he decided to call in turn with a hand like Queen Jack that drew to the nuts. If he had maybe some kind of combo flush draw. If he had the nut flush draw. Nguyen still beats like 20% of his range or something. He still wins a bunch by checking back. And for some reason, he just decides to ship it in here with a pair. I mean, luckily, no crazy shit went down here. Like somehow Vayo decided to put his foot in the brake and then somehow called down with a 4, ran to a 5. That could have been hilarious. But the point is, don't bluff in position when you have hands that can easily be good. I mean, maybe this is just a case of neither of these players know heads up very well. Maybe Vayo's like, oh, my hand's not that strong. And maybe Nguyen's like, oh, 5 isn't very good. He probably has a 9, which, to be fair to Nguyen, his opponent mainly does have a 9. But you can't jam bluff hands that can win that high of a frequency because you have other hands you might want to bluff with, like a missed straight draw or a missed flush draw. Bluff with those hands. Don't bluff with this one. Anyway, I really do think, going back to Vayo, he needs to put his foot down, be a man, stand up, and look, if it's your time to die...
He hasn't been very courageous in his calls tonight, and so he doesn't seem like the kind of person that's going to get frustrated and make a call out of frustration, and some players have a tendency to do that. He comes across to me as very even-keeled, super calculated. Every hand is a new decision. Let's not allow past plays to have an effect on the outcome of my decision here. And I don't think he's going to call his old tournament life with a 9.
And a fold from Vayo.
Qui Nguyen again.
I am out of words, gentlemen.
It's your time to die, and you can't control that, okay? So, in summary, I think this was probably one of the most interesting hands they played heads up. We'll go through a few more hands, but I hope that gave you some insight into how to play the game of 1-on-1, no limit, Texas Hold'em. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm actually going to do several of these World Series of Poker main event hands, so if you want more of them, make sure to subscribe to my channel to get those updates.